As actors, we get to rely on scripts to tell us what to do.
Like when to slap someone across the face and when to let someone slap you.
But we don't need a script to tell us to help someone in need.
The SAG Foundation was founded to do just that, to help performers with life's unscripted moments and to give back to our communities.
Over the past decade, the SAG Foundation has given millions in financial and medical assistance to SAG-AFTRA performers and their families.
Last year, more than 25,000 union performers attended over 500 SAG Foundation Q&As, seminars, and workshops.
And SAG Foundation Book Pals read to over 60,000 children in schools every month nationwide.
Do you know how much SAG-AFTRA members pay for all these resources and programs? Zero.
Zero.
Zilch.
Nada.
Do you know how much of our union dues go to the SAG Foundation? Zero.
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 The SAG Foundation is a nonprofit that relies solely on donations, so it is vital that those who are able to help give what they can.
And you've been giving since the SAG Foundation was founded in 1985.
I love 1985.
Out of Africa.
The Color Purple. The Goonies.
The Cosby Show.
Family Ties.
The Golden Girls.
What?
So many truly fantastic performances since then.
We have a wonderful history and a beautiful tradition of being there for one another. If you need help, it's here for you.
And if you can help, please give.
Like every great production, we are at our best when we all act
Together.
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 So please, act now.
So hello once again. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for those who are watching on the live stream. Again, my name is Dennis Baker. I'm the LifeRaft Program Director. A couple more things before we get started. How many have seen and interacted with the new website? Let's have those hands up in the air with that. How nice is that? Can we give a hand for that? Yeah. Our team has worked hard on that, and it's all for you guys to better use it and figure out what's going on and understand what we're doing and sign up for events. So please make sure, for those watching, if you have not changed your password, to do so. And then also Twitter, Facebook, youtube.com/SAG Foundation is all places you can watch the videos, as well as the videos are clearly now on our website to watch. So if you want to watch something again tonight, go there and check it out and rewatch some things. I'm excited for the panel. This is such a cool topic and a way to kind of think about how you can take your filmmaking to the next level. I'm so thankful for our moderator to come back. She was here about a year ago, and she's like, yeah, I want to do this again. So she's super wonderful, and thank you for doing that. And so let's give Zadi Diaz, our moderator, a hand, as well as the other panelists.
Hello, everyone. This is a nice full room, which is great. Today we're going to talk about alternative funding and distribution methods, so it should be a really, really great topic. How many of you are actually either developing or creating a film right now? Wow. That's great. That's everyone. For those of you watching, it's pretty much everyone here, or at least 85% of the people sitting in this room. So hopefully you'll get a lot of information out of this panel. We have really great guests from both filmmaking and the web. There's a lot of intersection happening. And hopefully we'll be able to unpack a lot of the mysteries around funding and distribution and what it takes to actually make your film come to life. So I am your moderator today. My name is Zadi Diaz. I've been in the online space for about 10 years, a little bit over 10 years. Actually saw one of the audience members who I met in New York at a play that I cast a few years ago, and reminded me that I actually started in theater. So it's been a circuitous path. I am the executive producer of YouTube Nation, which is a project between DreamWorks and YouTube. It's the flagship show for YouTube, hoping that you find, and it acts as a guide to find creators and great content on the platform. Before then, I was at Disney Interactive as the head of content development there. So I've been in this space for a while. And so I'd love to introduce the panelists, and let's go down the line and tell us a bit about who you are and your background.
I'm Gita's husband, Aron Gaudet, and we made Beneath the Harvest Sky that you saw before, wrote, produced it together.
And edited it.
And edited the film, yeah. And I love actors. My whole job is to hopefully create opportunities for you guys to do what you do best. So.
My name is Gita Pullapilly, and as Aron said, we write, produce, and direct together. I don't edit, thank God, because it'd be terrible. And yeah, we actually, part of what we do is, part of our process, even as directors, is really working with actors in a creative process to give them a 360 space to work freely and capture authentic and real moments. So we're excited to be here today.
So are we? I'm Matt Bettinelli-Olpin. This is Chad. We've been working together since 2007, making. We had a website, Chad, Matt, and Rob, kind of like what you guys saw, and we started as actors, started writing, directing, editing, just everything we can on our own.
Right, and now Rob no longer works with us, and we work with two other guys, and now we're called Radio Silence. And since
Rob moved to New York.
He did. He moved to New York, and since he left, we've done a film that got into Sundance in 2012, and we had a movie come out in January for 20th Century Fox.
That's great. So a lot of experience here. So I guess, you know, because a lot of you are developing or starting to create your films, maybe we start at the beginning, right? Because if we're talking about development, if we're talking about financing and distribution, a lot of that thinking probably comes in the beginning of sort of that ideation process. So why don't you start telling us a little bit about, you know, Beneath the Harvest Sky. What was the sort of the impetus? What was the idea behind it? What did you have to think about prior to, you know, kind of putting anything down on paper?
Right. I mean, for us, we had made a feature-length documentary film that came out in 2009 that takes place in the state of Maine, where I'm from. And we self-distributed it, and when we were done with that and we knew we wanted to tackle a narrative feature, we said, you know, where are the people that would support us? Because we knew it would be super low budget and we would want that community support. So again, it was about, okay, we want to make a film in Maine again because we knew that the state of Maine, the people there would support us coming off our documentary. So we started by just knowing we wanted to do a coming-of-age story, and we actually just went to Maine and sort of traveled all around Maine and found this location we really loved, and then sort of reverse engineered this coming-of-age story to fit this town, like kind of treated it like a documentary, and spent a year and a half sort of immersed in this town and made the story to be very much like what life was like there.
I think when we think about the concepts and kind of starting a project, we like to joke when we don't know, we can't figure something else out. We like to go to people who are smarter than us. So since 2008, we've utilized a team from Harvard Business School who they've actually come on board to do a case study for each of our films, and as part of that process, they figure out a marketing and distribution strategy that Aron and I can take out and really start implementing through that process. So when we self-distributed The Way We Get By, we actually used their model.
That was our documentary.
That was our documentary, and that was so successful that we found a way to work together with them on Beneath the Harvest Sky, but this time we really wanted to work with a distributor and not take it out on our own. And for us, the first thing that when we think about a project is, who is our audience? And that literally starts the marketing and distribution plan before we even begin thinking about the project in terms of its creative process, because we know what we want to tell, but we want to know, can we actually reach the audience that we want to reach? Otherwise, if you're only seeing 5 people watching your film, it's not going to reach the goal that we want it to reach. So.
And Matt and Chad, so you're really close to the audience and the community. What was that process like, the three of you coming together initially, thinking about, we were joking back there that Matt, Chad, and Rob were, you know, was a name that you kind of picked out of necessity, I guess. And kind of being at the ground and really having community so close and your audience so close, was that something that you considered before starting your series, or were there other considerations before deciding, I'm going to put this online?
Yeah, I mean, that was huge for us. Like, for us it was, we have a couple hours after work, we'll get a camera, we'll just go shoot it, and we know there will be an audience because it's online. So, you know, and then it was like MySpace, I think, was kind of.
Yeah, MySpace was the first one. Our very first
YouTube was kind of starting.
Right. Our very first project, there's only 2 of us on camera at any given time because the other one was holding the camera. So we were like, all right, how are we going to do this and get it out there? And we were able to like get a short out there on MySpace. It was like, all right, cool, we get 40 views today. Oh, it was nice. We got another 20 today. And then
you'd also get like 40 comments.
Right.
It would be like, oh, I really like it. I hate it. You guys suck. I mean, the same stuff that happens now, but it felt very intimate. So it felt like we were communicating with people instantly.
It's super, and like completely unfiltered feedback, which is just like brutal sometimes.
Awesome.
Like, and it's kind of nice to get it like instantly on your video. You're like, this sucks. I'm like, all right, cool, man. That's great. You know,
missed the mark on that one.
Yeah, I know. We did something wrong there, but at least the other 28 people like it. I'm sorry you didn't. You know, didn't connect with you. That's cool. And knowing that you're working for YouTube or you're going to put it on YouTube, where if you don't entertain somebody in the first 5 seconds, they're gonna go click on a cat video. You need to find a way to like just grab them right off the bat and make sure your hook is there up front, and you get people in that way.
Yeah, it really got us, I didn't even think about that, but it really got us to think about the way we approach story, like in a huge way, in terms of like, you don't have time to be like pretty or interesting. Yeah, you have to be interesting immediately.
Did the comments at all influence or not influence what you would then do for the next episode? Okay.
No, not at all. I mean, they're just nice and they're like fun, and you get to get insulted so many ways, and you're like, all right, cool, that's neat. But you also know people are still clicking, and you're still getting viewers out there, and you're still making somebody laugh somewhere, and you're getting, for every negative comment, you're getting 3 nice comments, and it's like, this is really nice to get this type of feedback, and it makes you want to go out and make the sacrifices you need to make the second one or the third one or the fourth one, and just to keep going with it.
So Aron and Gita, you mentioned that you moved to Maine in order to kind of make this film, so you immersed yourself into the community. What were some learnings there, and did you use that setting and the people in the community there to sort of then support the film?
Yeah, I mean, I think it did pay off the way we had hoped, where, you know, like I was saying, we kind of reverse engineered it. We didn't just write a script and then kind of look for where there were good tax incentives or something. We went to this town and then wrote a story, you know, researched it like a documentary and just interviewed all these people there and all these teens, and, you know, the 2 lead characters are teens. And then that community became our biggest supporters, and, you know, we had a really low budget that, you know, we could have never made the movie in New York or LA or something, but there, with the community in-kind support, you know, we had in-kind support that was probably 4 or 5 times the amount of our budget, and so much stuff that people would just give us for free, or locations and all this kind of stuff, where, you know, there had never been a movie made in Van Buren, Maine, like this little town in northern Maine on the Canadian border. So there was that sort of excitement too of, you know, we were bringing in actors that they recognized from Game of Thrones or something to their little town to make this movie, and that just, the support there was really critical.
Yeah, I think for us it was really about, we were making a leap from documentary into narrative, and I think making that leap can be really challenging sometimes, because I think you get put in a box so quickly. So we knew we had a lot to prove with this narrative if we were going to go and try to do this. So we wanted to find where the most support was, and in terms of community support, because we knew if anything happened, you wanted to fall back on a home base. And then B, we wanted to find the right actors and also the right casting director who understood our vision and also understood our budget and could really kind of work with us and would go on a journey to Van Buren, Maine with us.
Let's talk about that budget a little bit. You know, you had sort of an idea, you look at the script, you have an idea of what it would potentially cost. How much influence did sort of the location have in sort of getting those actors that you wanted? What was that process like? And in the end, did it sort of, did it meet your budget sort of projections, or?
It kind of had to, but basically, you know, half our budget went to paying actors and the other half went to feeding them and housing them, and
so much was free. You know, there's our casting director was like our casting director was Allison Jones, who's based out of here. She does a lot of comedies, and
like a lot of Judd Apatow movies, Adam McKay movies, these big budget comedies, and we were making this low budget, like intense drama. But you know, we knew she knew how to find young talent. She had cast Freaks and Geeks and all these great shows that she had found these young talent, and what she was so great at is knowing the actors and what they would be up for and what they wouldn't be up for. So when we explained, we're going to this little town on the Canadian border where you don't even have cell service and there's no hotels, so we're staying in a Christian retreat center. She would, when we would talk actors, she would say, this person won't be up for this adventure. But this other actor will love this, and will be fine with this. And, every single actor we brought up there was never any sort of issue. I mean, they were all up for the ride, and that was so critical because we were asking a lot. They definitely were not there for the money. It was the story we were telling and that idea that, we're going to go up there and do something hopefully special and give them an experience that they didn't get every day.
But we needed a trailer, for example, for the actors, and our budget didn't allow for a trailer. But we ended up going to Bangor, Maine, and this family-run business had these state-of-the-art...
This RV center.
This RV center had a trailer that we asked him if we could use the trailer, and he basically took a piece of paper that was already used and asked what we'd want, and we wrote down on the piece of paper, like, trailer, and all that
He
stuff.
flipped it over and gave us a pencil and was like, write down what you need.
Yeah.
And then gave us this brand new, like, state-of-the-art RV, drove it 3 hours north to Van Buren and left it there for 3 months, and then came and got it after, and stuff like that you just, because it's Maine and because it's this very community-driven area, that we just had stuff like that happening constantly. That
We quickly learned you could ask for anything, and most of the time you might get a no, but sometimes you just get lucky and get an amazing...
Yeah, the only location we paid for was this seedy Canadian strip club that we shot a scene in. But we felt like for $200, we had it for the entire night, and it came with 2 strippers. So we felt like that was like a solid investment. Every other location was free, but did not come with strippers.
I mean, it's pretty funny because you do think that's an amazing story. You have the RV for 3 months, but when you ask for things, sometimes it comes to fruition. And I'm wondering for you guys, Matt and Chad, you were talking earlier about how not all 3 of you are on camera because one of you are holding the camera. So we were thinking, you're looking at the trailer, you see these amazing locations. What was that sort of budget process, and how are you handling that, being that it is so condensed and you only have 3 people working on this?
Well, our most successful video to date right now has like 32 million views on YouTube, and it was made for $50, and that was Domino's Pizza and a couple 12 packs of Diet Dr. Pepper. So we did ask a lot of favors, and we were able to do that.
Tons of favors.
Right, and I mean that's all producing is, right? You just ask people to do stuff, and you hopefully they say yes.
Give an example of how you ask.
Will you do this? Please.
Hey, this will be really fun. You want to come hang out on Saturday for a little bit?
Yeah. And so with the treasure hunt, the one we showed the trailer for, our total budget for that was under $9,000. $1,000 of that was to fly Alfonso Arau up from Mexico City, who we just on a whim we were talking about it and how we need like a good villain for this or somebody that go it. And Matt and I were talking on the phone, and I'm like, how about El Guapo? I love that dude. And Matt's like, all right, cool. So he got on IMDb Pro, emailed his manager, and she responded back, yeah, he's in town next week if you guys want to meet him. We're like, oh, that's cool. That's very serendipitous. So we met him, and he was in instantly. So
kind of like what you were talking about, where it was like we drove up to Lone Pine, we did everything, no frills, like nothing, like granola bars. And he was like, that was a big part of the conversation was, are you down to like go to the desert with us and just kind of hang out for a couple days?
Will there be granola
pay
bars?
You? Yeah, and he was up for it. He was like, yeah, I mean, if you can fly me up here, I'll do whatever.
Right, and then a lot of the other people we cast were just friends from acting classes and stuff like that. And actually, that's how Matt and I met. My first day in Los Angeles, I signed my lease on the apartment, went to an acting class that night because I thought I was being real ambitious. And I was like, I got there, I'm like, oh, wait, this is a little intimidating. So I sat down in the back row, and I sat down next to him. And we've been talking every day since then. So it's, yeah, isn't that sweet?
So sweet.
Unfortunately. But like asking friends to help, I mean, like building that community around you, there's so many people out here, and there's so many opportunities to like find somebody who's actually just willing to work and who has a positive attitude and who's more about the creative and less about the ego and getting things done that way. So we tapped a lot of friends, either from working in restaurants or from, you know, friends we met on maybe a shoot or two, and you just bring them all together and you're like, all right, cool, this is our team moving forward, and everybody has a piece of it and we're all having a great time and everybody has input on the creative and the discussion is open. So you're able to have a creative discussion and people are able to actively participate and bring what they do best to the process, and you embrace that, and you know, check your attitudes at the door, and you just
and you don't have to worry about budget, and everything's free.
Yeah, and then everything's free. Right. Right. Pizza, a lot of pizza and sodas.
It's interesting also, you know, I think many people wonder, you know, especially when you're creating your first film, the dream is to have someone of note, right, in your film. And so how does that conversation go, and how do you coerce them into, you know, being part of the project? I think they're, you know, especially if you're making a leap from documentary to narrative, or maybe it is your very first film, how do you gain the confidence of someone who may be an accomplished actor or director to know that, you know, they're in good hands?
Right. I mean, again, having Allison Jones come on as our casting director was so critical, and we ended up making her the executive producer of our film, because when we finished it and, you know, anybody would watch it, the first thing they would talk about were the performances, and we just felt like it wouldn't have been the movie it was if not for the actors that she was able to, you know, get the script to and get in our movie. And then I think a big part of it, which they just touched on, is we really did want to make it this collaborative effort. And, you know, I think it went a long way when every actor would show up there and we would kind of sit down with them and explain to them how we wanted it to be collaborative, and really that, you know, we wanted to explore beyond the script. And, you know, we had this whole sort of process we wanted to work out. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, like somebody like Aidan Gillen, who was coming from Game of Thrones, you know, he's working on this huge production that is such a big machine that a lot of times it ends up, you know, hit your mark and say your line. And after a while, for him, I think it maybe starts to feel like you're not being as creative as you could be. So he searches out, you know, an independent feature or an opportunity to be much more creative. And when we're saying, you know, we're shooting it very loose, documentary style, and it's not about that at all, and we really want to explore beyond the script. For him, it was exciting. So I think everyone was so excited to just do something collaborative that they had a voice in.
And I also think it comes down to story. I think in so many ways, you know, we wrote the script and we sent it out not just to other people who wrote scripts, but also to a lot of people, friends in the documentary community who are just great story people. And so we sent the script to them, and once they like signed up and said like, yeah, this is a story that should be made into a movie, we then sent, the only time we ever sent it out was to Allison, was our casting director. And when she had a chance to read the script, we were nobody really to anybody. And she read it and got back to us very quickly and said she'd come on board and support this project. So I think, you know, if you start with a strong foundation, then I think it builds credibility through the process each step of the way.
Yeah, and coming from documentary, I think one of our greatest discoveries was that actors love to act and work. And so, you know, I mean, I think they all came on board and showed up there just excited to work.
You guys down there, you know, thinking about paperwork and releases and agreements and signage. Are you thinking about any of that when, you know, you are preparing that short? Because when we're talking about distribution, a lot of these conversations then come back. Do you have the release for such actor? Do you have a location release? Do you have, you know, the logos in the back are blurred or that kind of thing?
Yeah. We actually do. We do the nice little releases with the actors, and we do.
Not at first. That took a couple.
Right. Yeah. When we got to when we knew what we could do.
But those are important lessons, you know, to talk about.
Oh, they're very important lessons. And then also SAG with the new media contracts we used a lot when we were doing a couple of our bigger productions for Chad Manrop.
Which was great and really accommodating. Like they allowed us to work within a micro budget, and everybody could do it, within the guild rules, and it was fantastic.
And for music, we used friends' bands and stuff like that too. So we were able to get like licensing rights and stuff like that. And
there's a lot of resources when it comes to like music too, where you can use libraries for fairly cheap if you're not attached to like a big brand or something. Like they actually do. They do exist where you can do it for almost nothing.
Right. And then for Film LA permits, everybody
spend your entire budget.
Or you get an intern, and they're students, and you get a student rate at $90 compared to a couple thousand or whatever.
That's a good tip.
And you just have them apply for it, which is also really nice to keep that low, and then you're still permitted and you're good to go.
It's a very valuable tip. On your end, were you thinking, so you have a really interesting kind of story when it comes to distribution and funding. Were you initially thinking about who would be funding or branding or any kind of brands as you're developing your story? Did that ever come to mind, or how did that sort of come to fruition?
I think, we had Harvard Business School students working on this, this question we had posed to them, which was how can indie filmmakers work better with distributors? And they had kind of taken this question out to a bunch of distributors. And the big takeaway was if there was some way to reduce P&A costs, it's like they may acquire an independent film for a small amount, but then they have to put so much money into marketing it that now this film has to go out and really outperform what it's maybe capable of doing. So that was their big takeaway. They came back to us and they said, maybe if you could find a third party that could provide marketing help.
Yeah, that would reduce the risk on the project, but also that would be potentially one of the only ways it could be a win-win collaboration between a distributor and an independent filmmaker without the scale being out of whack in terms of the balance of who could actually get a fair deal out of this process. I think there's two things to this. One is the funding that came to the production of the film in itself was private investors that came on board to support. Basically, they didn't even care about the movie as much as they cared about investing in Aron and I. And
that was again Maine. It was people that really loved our documentary film, which was this heartwarming story, and so we were asking for so little. They just were like, we just want to support you as artists. We kind of don't care what you're doing.
Yeah.
Which was fine, which was great for us.
But it also takes, making the step into the narrative for the first time. For us, we realized early on in the process of filmmaking that your name is everything in this business. And so we didn't feel like we could take money from people to put towards a project that we didn't know if we could pay them back. So when we thought about the budget, we said, what's our best case scenario, most likely scenario, worst case scenario, and then what did our documentary do? And then we went way below everything imaginable to make our budget because we knew
we had self-released our documentary, so we knew exactly what we were capable of doing with something if we released it ourselves. And that was about 3 80-year-olds that greet troops at an airport, so it was, it wasn't like a sexy subject, and now we're making a narrative with these teens, and we felt like if we can somehow make the movie for less than what we know we could go out and self-release it, then, there's not a lot of risk there.
I think you're also talking about the Terra Chips came on board to support our project as the third-party marketing partner. And what they did specifically was once the film was done, the whole purpose is once you take the film out into the world, basically once we had our world premiere at Toronto.
I mean, we should say, you're asking when did we start thinking about that. We were researching and writing this script, and it takes place during this potato harvest in northern Maine. One of the two kids is working a potato harvest on this farm that really does farm these blue potatoes that get turned into Terra blue potato chips. Like almost all of their blue potato chips come from these blue potatoes in this farm in northern Maine. So when they came back and said, find a marketing partner, and we were researching and working with these farmers, and they're talking about this great partnership they have with Terra Chips and how it's almost like independent farming. And so we said, maybe we should go to Terra Chips and see if they would like to be a part of what we're doing.
Except the problem was our script was really edgy and would eventually be an R-rated movie.
The other part of the story is smuggling drugs across the Canadian border. That's what his friend is up to, so it's...
Yeah. So it was a little bit tricky. Our entertainment attorney basically said, you know, it's the likelihood of being able to get a Fortune 500 company, they're owned by Hain Celestial Company, was going to be really unlikely because of the content of what's in the script. But we still said, well, let's just go and ask. And so we finally got to the head of marketing at Terra Chips, and he happened to be a Harvard Business School grad. So that was the first luck. 2, he happened to also love independent film. And 3, once the team from Harvard did a demographic of who actually eats Terra Blue potato chips and who watches independent films, they were almost identical. So we were like, okay, this is really great.
Yeah, this works for us. Does this work for you?
Yeah.
Fortunately, it did.
It did, yeah. We sent the script a few weeks, I guess a little while longer, actually. It had to go up the chain of command to get approvals, and they came back and they said that they would be willing to come on board and support the film from a marketing stage. So basically what we had to do was make the movie, but the key to this was they committed to us up front and early. So that was kind of like an insurance policy.
To help market it.
To help market it.
So it didn't help us during production, but we knew if we made a film they were happy with, we were going to have our film on bags of Terra potato chips, which was kind of crazy because we were joking it was kind of like Winter's Bone on bags of potato chips or something.
But what also helps with the collaboration is that Terra Chips happens to be the exclusive snack of JetBlue. So also then it opened up us to getting the chips on JetBlue, and they could watch little videos that
we shot some little documentaries that played like on the JetBlue seatbacks. And
so what that meant was now instead of an independent film going to like Toronto and then the distributor having to pay for all of this marketing on top of everything else, we were giving them millions of eyeballs to our film.
And millions of dollars in-kind marketing, like this package, all with our movie. So
it's amazing. It shows how important location was and how it sort of drove to eventual distribution in an unexpected way.
Well, you guys are so much smarter than us.
Wow. That's wild. That's fantastic.
We're all talking. Well, I mean, with that
Terra Blue potato chips to eat on your set, though.
Well, Matt and Chad, how when you're thinking, I mean, anything goes on the web, right? And so you come up with an idea and you can pretty much, you know, make it happen if you really want to. In your process, how much are you thinking about brand safeness and, you know, whether or not what you're creating can sort of extend out to sponsorship?
Like, not at all. I mean, we did one branded thing a few years ago for Axe shampoo, which I think I can now say has nothing to do with us. Like, we're not those kind of guys. But they reached out to us, and we were like, oh, awesome. Like, someone's going to fund this one. That's, oh, my God. We don't have to pay out of pocket. And it was great. And they actually worked really well with us to just allow us to minorly insert their product. But other than that, we've never really thought about it.
No, that conversation actually really
like he
funny.
Said, you guys are so much
right,
smarter.
so much smarter. The conversation with Axe was really funny. They're like, hey guys, we want the 3 of you to do something, you know, and then at the end, there's some girls there and they got to run their fingers through your hair. And we're like, all right, cool. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a party, and then there's going to be a spaceship that shows up, and the spaceship is going to like drop this thing out of it, and it's a teleporter, and then the shampoo is fuel for the teleporter, and then you go to 3 different worlds, and then you have a spaceship chasing a boat and all this other stuff.
A bunch of stuff that has nothing to do with shampoo.
Nothing to do with shampoo. Yeah. But then we ended up using the shampoo as like a link for the annotations to click through on YouTube, because I think innovation goes a long way too with it, and using the innovation the right way. The way we got that, and also Alfonso Arau excited about what we actually were doing, was like, we want to make choose your own adventure stories that people
Which is what that is. It's actually like 30 minutes of stuff.
Right, so they could click through. So you get to a certain point in the story, and then you get 2 choices that pop up on the screen in the video, and then you click it, and you go to the next one. And sometimes the main characters die, and then it rewinds, and it goes forward, and then the main characters survive. So I think that went a long way into our brand friendliness for Axe, and then the fact that we were able to use the Axe shampoo bottles as the things they click to go through. I think Axe was happy with it, and you know, they haven't come back though, so maybe they weren't. maybe they weren't that happy with it, but I thought they were.
I mean, that's
but
a great
you can get
point.
someone to pay for your stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, using innovation, or you knowing sort of what that the thing is that can lock in, somebody that can sponsor your film. We'll talk a little bit about sort of the choose your own adventure model and the innovation behind that and technology behind that, and how you have to sort of map out a story, because it's not so much a linear experience as it is sort of this sort of deep, tangential journey that you're taking. So what is that process like, and how does that tie into how you distribute something like that? Because you can't really just package that. It's not just a story that you're saying, watch from beginning to end. It has many different endings. So what's that process like, and how do you pitch it?
Well, that was something that we did I think we did 5 total, and they're all about half an hour. And the first couple we did, it was, like anything on YouTube where you just do it and you kind of hope people find it, which was always kind of difficult at first. And then we started realizing that we could do like just good old-fashioned outreach to like blogs and people we respect and be like, hey, do you like this? Maybe send a link or say something about it, which goes a long way. But yeah, as far as how you write it, we basically do it like a tree. So it's like the main story, and then it's just a bunch of little branches off, and so you write each one separately, and then we shoot them the way you would anything else. And so it's really all in the edit. But it's interesting because it got a lot of people to come watch our stuff, and
it adds another layer too when you see your protagonist die right away.
Oh yeah.
It's like, oh cool, like there is danger. Right, yeah, exactly. So you get to see them die. And then going back to the whole serendipity thing of it all, like finding Alfonso Arau or somebody like that too. Our dinner with him, we were talking about what we were doing and how we wanted to do this big for YouTube action adventure type thing that is the choose your own adventure thing. And he told us a story immediately, like how in the 1960s they tried to do an interactive movie where they had 65 projectors lined up behind the thing, and then based off of audience participation, they would roll another projector up, and then they would show that clip, and it would go through that. So it was using that technology and old idea, and just like that bonded us with him, and he got us into that thing, and that opened up other doors and things like that too. So I think.
And as far as YouTube goes, the annotations are a great way, even if you're not using them for storytelling, they're a great way to kind of keep people in your realm. It can be like, oh, go watch this other thing I like, which brings them back to other stuff you've made, which means it can just create like a nice little world. And
go into branding too, actually, it could be really cool for branding. If you like got a sponsor and say at the end of the video or midway through the video, we could link to your site and we could show your ad if people want to click through and see the sponsorship or something like that. Even at the end, then it just keeps them in that loop of clicking and coming back to videos.
It's sort of a different way to engage your audience, right? Because it's not a lean back experience, it's very lean forward, and they're part of the story, so it's much more gameplay and narrative at the same time. You've continued to sort of do this format. How has it evolved from the very first one? What have been some lessons that you've learned that you've then applied to your more recent?
We make the deaths longer, because we used to make the deaths were always really short videos. It'd be like, oh, go in this room, oh, they die. And then we realized people could always tell because you can see the next video is a minute long. So that was like one.
Yeah, I mean, you remember going through Choose Your Own Adventure books, and when you would guess the next page, and you only saw 2 sentences, you're like, oh, shit. Yeah. Like I died, and you have to go back. So it's like when you make sure that the length is the same throughout, so people who do click are still surprised and still engaged in the video as they watch it the whole way through.
And then they get really mad when they die.
Yeah. And you see it right below in the comments. They're like, oh man, you guys are assholes.
Are you guys able to see like the data of who these people are that are watching, like their ages or anything about them to kind of understand
YouTube has
your
like
audience?
insane.
Their analytics are
the
nuts.
analytics. Yeah, I mean they can tell you like age ranges, countries, like everything you can imagine. They have data for.
And then would you start playing into that?
Again, not really. We probably should have.
Yeah, right. No, luckily for us, we got the imagination and creativity of 12-year-old boys. Yeah. So that was our audience, and that's the way it worked out.
I mean, but that brings up a good point. There are a lot of data geeks, right? And there's creativity in data, but the story always comes first. But then, how can you use the data to sort of then build on top of that instead of being a slave to data? This is something we're always struggling with as well. I'm pointing to Steve Wolf, who's also a partner and husband and co-creator. So I know your struggles here as well, and joys. So wondering, kind of going into sort of the filmmaking or short filmmaking model or feature filmmaking model, were you ever thinking about, you mentioned people funding from the community. Were you ever thinking about grants? Were you ever thinking about, how sort of alternate, those are very traditional forms of funding, but how did all of those things tie together?
Yeah, I mean, coming from documentary, that's really how you sort of fund that, is through a lot of grants. But then going into narrative, we knew, that was a little bit more off the table. But I think for us, it was really just getting to a budget that we knew we could raise, and then realizing that in-kind community support is as good as money. When something gets donated that eliminates a line item in your budget, it's as good as cash. So I think we got so much in-kind support all across, the different departments, that it made a huge difference, and it was like free money.
Yeah, when we started with our first film, which was the documentary, we started applying for as many grants as we could, and we got rejected from every single place you could imagine, and we were like, what are we doing wrong? Is it them or is it us? And we realized it was us.
Can't be us.
Yeah. But then we also realized that it's really hard to get funding for, like, who wants to, when we started putting ourselves in their shoes, it's, do you want to take a risk on an unknown, or do you want to take a risk on somebody who's already made films before? And once we started understanding the process of the grant makers that were actually giving funding out, we realized, okay, we have to do more to prove ourselves. So for that film, for every film we take, our approach is, how do you figure out the money first, is a big key to it. And for that film, for example, we were WGBH filmmakers in residence at the time when we were in, like, the post-production. We had worked...
The PBS station in Boston, and it's one of the biggest in the country.
Yeah, we were working full-time jobs, then taking extra jobs to kind of start putting money into that film. And then we got to post, and we realized we can't, if we're going to have to commit to getting this edit done. And so we were...
This is where we realized that she's smarter than all of us.
No.
This is a good story.
So we were at WGBH, and we were, like, really struggling financially to try to figure out what we were going to do. And Aron and I were talking about how we were going to get money to keep going. And we were standing in the near the elevator, and next to the elevator...
This is a brand new building they had just built.
Yeah, they just built, and on the wall was a list of all the biggest, wealthiest people that gave money.
Like all this donor wall of who paid for this building.
Yeah. So I looked at the wall and I said, Aron, let's take a photo of this wall and start Googling these names. And we started Googling all of these names, and finally we got to a lady on the list who, when I Googled her name, she worked at this, like, big investment firm, but happened to also have a connection to Maine. So I called her, and she ended up calling me back, and she said, I can't help you, but I know a Vietnam veteran who would probably totally love this, because he never got a greeting. So what was happening at this airport in Bangor, Maine, with all these troops getting greetings, might connect to him.
And he lived in Maine.
And he happened to live in Maine, and he ended up becoming our executive producer and helping us find the final funding for our movie. So I was looking at a brick on a wall in a building. So your money can come from anywhere, is what I'm trying to say.
Pay attention to your environment.
Yeah.
Matt and Chad, so now there's a lot of strategy and development and thinking about what you're going to do and sort of considerations, and now so you're now on set and, thinking about what's happening right here, right now. Social media plays a large part in kind of awareness and distribution. How much did you use that during your process? Obviously, YouTube is a social network as well as just a video distribution site. But how did you use that platform, and how did you use any other platforms in conjunction with that?
I mean, we used MySpace at first, and then YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We used all of it a lot. And it was, just like tweeting about our things. And then what I think really helped is creating connections with the people who are watching your stuff, which is kind of what we were saying earlier, where you do create like a community based around whatever you're creating. And I think this happens for a lot of people that do the same thing. And I mean, we did that for a long time, and it was fantastic.
We responded to every single email.
Every email.
Every email we got, even it's like, you guys suck, you guys are hacks. We're like, oh, sorry, you think that way. Hopefully you like our next one better, and just to every single email from every kid all over the place that
when you get we get a lot that we're like, I want to do something like that, and I have access to this thing. I'm in 5th grade, and I'm thinking for my class I'm going to do it. So then we just get on the phone with someone and talk them through how to do it, and that was easily the most rewarding part. I mean,
we Skyped with a 7th grade class once. That was a lot of fun in Ohio, which was like
they
really
still
neat.
do that. They started making interactive adventures based on what we were doing, and they're still doing it. And that was like 5 years ago.
Right.
And this teacher there, he's like, what, 3rd grade, 5th grade?
Yeah,
Yeah, he has his class every year. Their big project is an interactive adventure that 3 groups make in the class.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's great.
Did that ever result in any kind of, that communication with the audience directly, ever result in anything new for your product, or any sort of new thoughts or ideas or collaborations?
It never a collaboration, although we definitely said many times to people who'd be like, hey, like, I'm an actor, I want to be in your thing. We'd be like, well, if you're in LA, please do. We need actors. Like, come out. And it never did.
Put a kid's name in it once.
Put a kid's name in once.
One
Yeah,
kid asked, like, will you please put my name in your next video? So we're just randomly yelling out Jose or something like that. All right, cool. There you go, Jose.
Gita and Aron, so when you're filming, are you also considering in that process getting bonus material, or what does that entire package look like in addition to the film that can then potentially help distribution or
Right.
promotion?
Well, even that, we had Tara on board as a marketing partner on the back end, and we knew, we weren't partners with JetBlue, but we knew there was that potential for getting content on JetBlue. So even as we were making our movie, we also shot all this footage to make a short documentary on the actual farming of these blue potatoes in northern Maine. And that ended up really paying off, where then we did make this short documentary that was on JetBlue that was about this real farm family that was growing these blue potatoes, and then it would tag with a thing for our movie. And that was all part of the thing that was important to Tara, was having that opportunity. We weren't putting them in our movie like this commercial or something, but they felt like it was their opportunity to tell that story behind the movie of how their potato chips came to be. So, with the movie, they could tell their story behind it. And so we tried to facilitate that and shoot extra stuff like that.
And always extra footage is great for when you're trying to do press and promotion, and there's always extra clips that you need to, fresh new clips that could be an exclusive or deadline or something.
And how are you using that specifically? How do you use that extra content for people that don't know?
Yeah, I mean, some of that would come from, when we got into Toronto for our world premiere and we had a publicist on board, then it was about, is there something like an expanded clip or a deleted scene with maybe, one of our more well-known actors that could be used to, get on Deadline or get on IndieWire or something with an exclusive clip, or, that kind of stuff, or, something that would appeal to Tara that they would put on their Facebook page or something that promoted our movie, so that we're getting to their bigger audience as well, because maybe our movie has so many Facebook fans, but Tara Chips has many more. Or is there some way to tap into, the JetBlue Twitter audience, because they have, millions of followers where we didn't. So it's all about trying to tap into the bigger audiences of your partners. And whenever we would bring a partner on, it's how can you then tap into their audience and sort of make it a win-win where they feel like they're getting something by putting it out there.
That's really smart. Again, we just, with our extra footage, we make gifs of each other that are like, hey, what are you doing with your hand? It's like,
Jose.
Right. Like, nice little gifs.
Gifts are great.
Right.
But with that, do you ever consider cultivating? You have a very specific voice, right? So it's very comedic. It's fun. You're having, does that extend over to your voice in social media? Or are you sort of playing yourself? Are you yourself in social? Are you playing kind of the characters that you play in, how does that work?
Ourselves, yeah. Like, we've never thought of ourselves as comedians, so we never, in fact, I think we get uncomfortable doing that kind of thing on social media. So it is actually more always just and I mean, honestly, we also pretty much play ourselves when we're on screen too. So it's we just like to, talk to the people who like our stuff and vice versa, and it's kind of.
And what's that balance?
Yeah.
What's that balance like between promoting your stuff and sort of just kind of communicating with your audience? And what are you exactly saying?
I mean, for us, I think we started doing more of what you might think of promoting like, hey, go watch this thing, do this thing. And then we found that that was not only felt kind of false, but it also didn't really achieve much. And it felt much more rewarding, much more natural, much more real to just be like, well, let's just put the link up and then like talk to people and that kind of thing. And I mean, in a weird way, I hate to say that that was promoting it, but that worked to promote it, even though that wasn't actually the goal. Because when we did like the other more typical stuff, it never really works because people just see it and go, I don't want to watch your fucking video again. Like,
right. And I think that's what's important. Like YouTube's great like that because it's like, I call it monocast because it's not broadcast out to like everybody. It's like people are taking their time and they're watching it just them, you know? And then they take the time to send you a message or send you a comment. I think it's just like, I don't know, just respectful just to respond and just keep it conversational and not be like, hey, check out this other stuff or hey, buy this. Like, I don't think that we've never done that. We've never like sold merchandise or had like, well, we've had T-shirts, but we've given them away, I think.
It seems like you guys are building loyal fans.
Right,
yeah,
that's the thing.
Which is all the
Create
stuff
loyalty.
that like, yeah, like, and like, I mean, like I grew up like in the punk scene and that was what it was there. It was always do it yourself. You liked the bands, you knew the bands, you were friends with the band. So it's like that kind of mentality of like, why should it be any more than that? Which again, hasn't always been the most beneficial to us economically, but it has been creatively.
I mean, there's something to be said as sort of about a captured built-in audience that you build yourself from the ground up, right? And so do you feel like in thinking about any new projects that you have to sort of commit to a certain tone or kind of aesthetic because you have to pay respect to your fans, the fans that you built, or do you feel like you can sway left or right?
That's interesting actually, because so like Chad mentioned earlier, we did a movie last year that was not totally our tone because it was somebody else's script, and it was like, it was a very interesting process. It was incredibly fun, but we had that issue where it's like we weren't able to bring 100% of ourselves to it just because we couldn't, and it was people way above our pay grade telling us we couldn't. And I think there was a little bit of like some pushback there. You know what I mean? It was like some of our fans were like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, this is stupid. And because it's just not, it has nothing to do with what we had been doing.
So do you feel like you're starting from zero or?
In a weird way, that kind of, I do sometimes,
Yeah, definitely. And
I
like,
also feel like
just
that all the time.
Always, yeah. You always got to earn it back and make sure you like you get the crowd back that you want and that expect what they expect from you. And like we were fortunate enough to have a nice run on YouTube for 4 or 5 years, and I'm so excited like possibly in the spring maybe shoot something else.
Yeah.
And let us get our voice back into it and like, you know, just let it be us again up there and to get it out that way. It's going to be a lot more fun, and hopefully we do get some people back, and you know, we'll definitely hear from them either way if they like it or not. So that's what you got to look forward to.
That's great.
I think it's so fascinating how different our approach and business models are, because we are quite different in a lot of ways. Like, you are direct to your audience. Like, we, as much as we make the movies we want to make because we think I have identified our audience, we don't have that personal relationship with our audience. So our processes are so different, but you know, like when we do the documentary, it goes to PBS, and there's that PBS audience, and they write comments and stuff, but I never interface with them the way you guys interface with.
And what's so interesting as a whole, it could potentially become stronger because these are two elements that you absolutely should pay attention to. Then together with the community, with online distribution, filmmaking.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You guys should work together.
At some point in the future, where you see everything heading to digital content and reaching your audience more direct, at some point in the future, you will suddenly be way ahead of all of us.
Yes.
Because you've already been doing it.
That's a good segue into questions. We can start with this. So this one's for Matt and Chad. Can you talk about the transition from YouTube to 20th Century Fox as it pertains to budget and development? When is Devil's Due 2 coming out? Because this cabbie was great. Oh, just great. And deserves a sequel.
Is he back? Is he back there?
Sincerely, Jose.
Sincerely, Matt and Chad.
No, I forgot the question because I just realized, Roger.
Roger, thank you. It was like, it's crazy. I mean, it's a world of difference when you go from YouTube and you're like doing something for no budget at all, and then you go to, you get like a nice little break because some producer saw one of your videos and you do a segment in another horror anthology. And then from that you get a studio movie. It's just, I mean, it's crazy. Like, it's not really something you plan out to do. It's just something you're like, all right, cool, I'm going to go with this, But I think it's important to stay with your voice. And Devil's Due was a blast. We had a lot of fun making it. We did touch on the subject that it wasn't really our voice out there, but I think we had a good time making it. And I think a lot of the cast members that were in it had fun making it too.
It's also, speaking to the budget aspect of it, for 20th Century Fox, it was a micro budget. For us, it was more money than we knew what to do with ever, forever. And so, it was, it was a lot of weird back and forth where our line producer would be like, well, you guys have, X amount to do this thing. Do you think you pull it off? And be like, are you fucking kidding? We could do the whole movie for that. That's insane. So, we loved it because it felt like just we could do anything, There's people serving food in the morning. You're like, what? But no, it was definitely a transition. But the coolest thing about that process, I think, in terms of YouTube, was Fox, to their credit, really allowed us as much as humanly possible to do exactly what we had been doing in terms of the way we function, the way we operate, the way we work with the actors, the way everything we could do at the studio level, they let us do, which was great.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was fun.
Could all three of you be on camera at the same time, or Rob
all
already
cinematographer credit?
All right, so this question is from Tyrone McGee. I have a movie finished and I want to know, what should I do now? How do I get my money out there and possibly make the money back that I spent? It's for anyone.
So, so you have your movie. Who asked that question? Somebody? You have your movie done. You haven't submitted to festivals, but it is like a festival movie, like a feature or a short. And I guess, if you finish a movie, probably the easiest step, if you don't have somebody that is tied to distribution, is doing the festival circuit, or maybe YouTube and stuff as well as the option.
Yeah, if it's a short,
Yeah.
For
Short
sure.
can go, YouTube. otherwise festival circuit if it's a feature, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Cut a trailer and get that on YouTube and see if that catches fire a little bit.
Interesting, yeah.
And for us, we do try to figure out, who our audience is, and we treat every film almost like its own separate business entity. And we say, so it's like, if we're thinking about our film, it's like, well, that's sort of your storefront. You think about, would you build out a store and open the door and then think like, oh yeah, who's this store for? So we kind of think about that early on as we're making it, as, who is the end audience for this, and how do they consume their media? Because, maybe your audience consumes their media on digital, or maybe it's something that they buy DVDs or watch it on Netflix or whatever. So I think it's important to figure out your audience, and then that'll tell you how to reach that audience.
Yeah, if you find your audience, figure out how they consume that content, then you'll know how to reach your audience. You either do it with the festival circuit, you put it on YouTube, or you sell them at a separate screening that you throw. There's so many different avenues.
You can reach out to distributors who sometimes can do, and some of them are very shady, so be careful. I have friends who have done that, who have made things that then they didn't know what to do with for a year or two, and then a buddy of ours now, every time I go home, I see his movie on morning at my parents' house, which is really weird, but it was this thing where, he made a very low budget feature and then reached out to distributors, and then somebody got it, shopped it around for a while. It took a long time, but now it actually is out there, but it still seems kind of shady, some of it. He's dealing with some money issues with them, so be careful.
Yeah, and depending on, the theme of your film, I would imagine that, like you were saying, not only your community, but if it is about, baseball, look at what online communities are out there that you can sort of tap into and Google them. Twitter, follow people that are really into that theme on Twitter or any social networks, or making videos about them, collaborate on promotions. There are a lot of things you can do on a DIY level that would help without giving too much away from your film, but also still building that community beforehand. So Bruce Lindquist asks, with piracy being a growing issue, both national
perspective, so going to digital, I don't know. I do think there's a future model in a direct-to-consumer thing where you go just through iTunes and say, here's our feature, it's $5, you know, and sell directly to, kind of like what Louis C.K. did and Aziz Ansari did with their comedy shows. That might be needed like a star vehicle, like you have somebody in there that's a name that has like a bit of a following, or even a popular Twitter following or something like that, that they could get it out to a couple million people a couple times a day, to do that. In terms of piracy, wow, that's a tough one.
Man, it's there. Yeah.
We've sort of accepted it. Yeah, our movie is readily available on any of those torrent pirated websites, and we've just sort of gone with it, and you know, it's going to happen, I think. So
at our level, it helps in a weird way because you know, people who discover it through those sites tend to be the demographic for our movie. So then they like the movie. Then we find that they actually go out and actually end up buying it, or end up, the value of it is like them telling their friends about it.
They might tell their friends that don't pirate movies, and they'll get it on iTunes or something. But
and I do think there's like a lot of weight in anti-piracy campaigns. So if there's anything to like support and fund, would be to go to anti-piracy campaigns and basically shame people into paying the $3 or $4 it takes to get your movie, to watch your movie, and not being a jackass and watching it on a shaky handheld camera in a theater in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, our movie that leaked was all.
Our movie was like that anyways.
yeah, that's why we bought into the piracy. So now at least it's a good quality copy that is out there. Our next movie, we're hoping Louis C.K. will sell off his website for us.
Yeah, we found that the older that you get, the easier it is to just pay for things. It's really difficult to pirate, to figure out where it used to be so easy. It's just, this is probably a good segue. So from Kurt, Meg, to anyone, any advice on how to make the digital space commercially viable? Then?
Sounds like one for you guys.
Viewership goes a long way. So if you're able to like generate a following, and I know now there are like incredible venues, like if you get more than 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, and you have that Google AdSense share where you're making a little bit of money.
The YouTube space we were talking about earlier.
And you're able to use, with over more than 10,000 viewers, you're able to use the free YouTube space that's in the Marina Del Rey.
Which if you don't know about it, you should look into, because it's unbelievably awesome. It's like the best resource for
anybody
filmmakers.
Creating anything. Yeah. And then so from that viewership thing, you're able to generate the AdSense revenue, and I think from that you're able to like invest that back into yourself and into your next production, and then hopefully from that you'll be able to like draw brands towards you, if that's what you're looking to strictly do, is to make money off of that. There are definitely going to be avenues out there to
and I mean,
find sponsors.
And I think on the most basic level, the one thing that stands out of I think everybody who becomes successful, but especially on YouTube, is to have something unique. I mean, it's cheesy, but it's like your voice, whatever that is, like your own thing. Because if you're just doing what other people do, I'll watch the other one. You know what I mean? So, but if you have your own thing, and it's undeniably yours, then people will go to it. So
and post regularly. I think that's something that we never did
we failed at that
we
too.
We would like skip a couple months in between posts. But people who are able to post every week or every 2 weeks have.
Or daily, if that's the kind of thing.
Exactly.
You're doing.
Then you have that loyal following, and then you're like, oh, the brands will look at you and be like, these guys put something out every week or every 2 weeks, and it's always there, and we know it's going to be there, and we know they're going to generate between 100,000 to 1 million views every 2 weeks, and then that makes it just like brands are going to just jump all over that type of thing.
And you touched on this earlier a little bit. You know, there's something to be said about having not only content, but product that may go along with content. So whether it's T-shirts or any kind of other product that sort of speaks to your community, there's something about that support that really helps and extends. And to your point, yes, it's absolutely true. Going to a meeting with you know, X number of views and community and all of this has a lot more weight than going into a meeting with just a pitch. So you're kind of bringing in a lot more weight that could help you ultimately. Okay, so we have from, let's see, one more. All panelists, can you please explain the various ways a filmmaker can sell his or her content online? Who is the best person to make these deals? Producers, reps, attorneys, agents? What is the proper order to sell your film? If you want a TV deal, can you still stream for money? If so, at what juncture?
There is sort of like a flow to it if you're self-distributing You know, where I think some of that does come into play, where if you've already put it on somewhere for free or something, you're not going to be able to then, you know, get a TV deal or something. But I mean, I think for us with our documentary, especially which we self-distributed, the whole game plan was to cut out every middleman we possibly could, no matter how long it took to get by them, so that, you know, when our movie sold in whatever format, if it was iTunes or Netflix or anything like that, the money was coming straight to us and wasn't going to some third party. And that was huge. You know, even with DVDs, where we had friends that were going through these third parties to sell their DVDs, and, you know, on a $20 DVD, they might see $4 of that. And by the time we would cut everything out, if we sold a $20 DVD, we would see like $18 of that. And so then we realized we could be like only a quarter of as successful as them and still make more money than them. So, you know, it's like if you work hard at doing that, you don't even have to be as successful to be more profitable.
I mean, again, it goes back to who your audience is and how to reach them, because with that documentary, I think it was important where we felt like once we got through the festival circuit and then we started our theatrical, with our theatrical, we made a deal with a bank in Maine that ended up paying for our DVDs. They ended up paying for 10,000 DVDs and then gave us 5,000 so we could sell on our own directly.
They bought 15,000 and gave us 10,000.
And then also paid for our 35 millimeter film prints so that we could screen across the country. So it was like $100,000 of, you know, worth of film prints and stuff. So it's figuring out deals like that that can be made so that you can reach your largest audience however possible. And then once you did theatrical, we had a deadline for leading up to our PBS broadcast. And then after PBS, then it went on digital platforms and DVDs and stuff like that. So there is a tier that you have to follow when you're doing like a traditional distribution.
But really knowing who your film is for, because if you're going to go to a distributor and explain why they should go directly to you and not to this bigger third party, because they don't want to go directly to you. They want to go to this place where they can get 100 films at once, not deal with 100 different indie filmmakers. You have to really have like a good pitch and reason why they should do that. So it's really important to know who your film is for.
Well, here's something. So we're casting for a web series with minimal budget. I heard there's a special experimental digital project rate for web projects. Please tell me more about this. I think you touched about this earlier, SAG New Media, or is there something else that?
Yeah, hopefully they're still doing it. The SAG New Media contracts, so you could get SAG-AFTRA actors, and if I'm wrong, somebody just flag me down, to do these things at low rates and deferred payments. I think it's definitely worth looking.
There were a
into.
few different versions. I mean, we haven't done it for a couple of years, but there were a few different versions that were like very, very malleable to whatever you needed to do.
It's fantastic, and it's based off a total budget and what you're able to pay actors, and to be able to get the talent you want involved. It's definitely worth calling their new media department here at SAG.
And as we're wrapping up, I'd love for each of you to share your very worst mistake, maybe some pitfalls that people can avoid, some lessons, harsh lessons learned. You may save people from agony here. Are there any lessons or kind of takeaways from a lot? You know, you've been through a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we fuck up a lot. It sounds like we have our shit together, but we actually screw up a lot and just try to learn from those mistakes. I'm trying to think of one that would really pertain to this crowd. Like I could tell you about trying to go on what they call a moose safari up there, which involves like chasing a moose down a logging road, but it probably would never pertain to you. Can you think of something that we did wrong and then...
We do a lot of stuff wrong, and I think that's how we learn kind of from that process. It's okay to fail for us. We're totally okay failing because then we know we learned something through that process and then it pays off somewhere down the line. But I think so much of what Aron and I have learned through this process is that we just don't give up. Like we want to see everything as a win-win, and we'll want to collaborate with as many people as possible. But also, even if you say no to us 1,000 times, we'll still find a way around you to get what we
And
want
also
done.
just that act of just starting your project a lot of times is the biggest thing. You know, if we waited to raise more money or do something, you know, it's like people wait, and sometimes just saying, hey, we're production starts on this date, and then you start production and you kind of get the train moving. That goes so far, you know, and then you just have to keep it moving. But just that act of, you know, getting the casting director and saying, we're starting, we have our money in place, we're making this movie, goes a long way, and just sort of that momentum carries you.
100%. I mean, that was always our thing of like, even in the very beginning, it was like, we're just set a day, hey, Saturday, we're shooting. This weekend, we're shooting. And then, you know, it's progressed from there. But, and we also failed many, many times at lots of stuff. And I mean, I think the best one I can think of is to be safe when you're doing stuff. Because we have a story about shooting in Death Valley we were using it as Mars.
4th of July weekend, it was in Mars. Yeah.
And so both of us were in full body
plastic hazmat suits.
Our version of what someone would wear on Mars. And Chad got heat stroke,
and passed
30
out.
minutes in?
Yeah, about a half hour into it.
Didn't even get up the first dune.
No.
So then the thing we had written for 2 people became just me. And then I did it all day. Felt great, fantastic. Got in the car and basically was like, thought I was dying the whole way back to LA. And this was out in Death Valley. And then spent the night in the hospital. I had overhydrated plus heat stroke, which I was like, what? Anyways, they basically were like, you were about an hour away from death. So be careful. Like, we do a lot of shit. Like, I mean, I'm not joking, but I mean, we do a lot of stuff because it is low budget, because it's just us, because we're just out there like, yeah, let's just do it, man. That sometimes we get in places where we're like, wait, what are we doing? Like, this is so stupid.
At least you learned from Chad's issues.
Yeah, no, I passed. I was fine by the time he went to the hospital.
Yeah, he was great.
That was great. I was all better.
I was not. But I feel like we've done that a lot. Like, we were shooting, like, Roger, when we were shooting in Dominican Republic, we were in some neighborhoods that we were, like, just, you know, doing what we do and running around with the camera and being idiots. And then someone we were with was like, this is, like, the worst neighborhood in, like, the whole area. Like, you guys should definitely not be here. And we're like, oh, my God, we're so stupid. Like, what are we thinking? And you sometimes have that tendency when you're making things to just kind of feel invincible for some reason, which is weird because you feel the opposite.
It's okay, we're making a movie.
Else, so.
They don't care. They're going to jack your shit anyways.
Yeah. So be careful.
Sound advice.
Don't die.
You guys are pretty brilliant. I'm sure there is a lot more to say and share. So is there any information or any kind of last minute thoughts and kind of where people can reach you? I think would be great to know.
I don't know. We're on Twitter.
Yeah. Tweet us.
Yeah.
I'm at Gita Pullapilly.
And I'm at Gita Pullapilly as well.
Yeah.
Aron Gaudet.
Matt at Radio Silence Productions, Chad at Radio Silence Productions. You can just email us.
Yeah. Twitter's Hi Radio Silence.
Yeah.
Or my name.
I don't use Twitter very much anymore, but yeah.
And that information's at the SAGfoundation.org website as well. I'm Zadi, Diaz at Zadi, and thank you so much. This is such a great talk.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.